The condition is really crazy condition.
And that shouldn't give away the whole secret to professional windsurfing.
Maciek giving Antoine elbow a run for his body. Here we go. What a finish!
The guy is kind of talking bullshit.
The team's just got to work a little harder. Welcome to the Windsurfing Podcast, back again for episode 23. And this week, we have a guy who was racing when I was doing the Tiga Aloha class. Yes, he's been a Formula World Champion, he's been a Foil World Champion, and he is now the class representative for the IQ Foil. We talk about the IQ Foil and what it takes for a class to become an Olympic class. We talk about the PWA Tour, we talk about fighting and how he got into a bit of a scuffle with one annoying person. We also talk about what it takes to be a champion, what it takes to make it on the tour, and we also talk about how he's so close to winning that PWA event in Italy. Who is it? Well, it is, of course, Gonzalo Costa Hoevel.
Gonza, how you doing?
All good, finally.
Yeah, you're a hard man to track, but that's because you're the class manager of the new Olympic class. I guess congratulations are in order. The IQ Foil class, so let's get straight into it. So yeah, you're the class manager, and what does that actually mean for people? Are you like the boss of the whole? Do you run the show or what?
No, I'm not the boss, but definitely one of the guys that has been putting a lot of hours into the project. We are quite a few guys working on it, but it has been very, very hectic. A lot of hours behind the computer, not much in the water lately. A lot of things that I never imagined that I was going to be doing, like so much talking to federations, organizing events, talking to possible, let's say, organizers from all around the world. And yeah, I don't know, a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of hard work, but a lot of interesting stuff, and kind of like a really nice, honorable thing to do for the future of windsurfing, right? I see at both events that we did, and every day here in the water when I go sailing, I see a lot of anxiety on foiling, and I see what foiling has given to us, this like opportunity to bring windsurfing really, to make it attractive for racing and all that, and put in the spotlight in the world of sailing. So it's all really worth it. You know, I'm starting very early in the morning and finishing very late, and every day I know that it's worth all the hard work, and it's giving us a chance, not to put windsurfing again in the racing scenes in a different way, but in a very good place.
Yeah. So let's kind of start in the beginning. How, let's say, like you know the term of the current Olympic class is running out. Yeah, you know there is some rumor going around that, you know, the World Sailing wants a new class or whatever. How, actually, I don't know even how that works, that part also. So how is that process of even electing an Olympic class for windsurfing? Or I guess it's under World Sailing, so any sailing class would have a similar process.
Yeah, so I think that in windsurfing, RSX was there for a while. I think 4
12
games.
years.
12.
3 Olympics. Oh, four Olympics, 4 cycles,
yeah,
16 years.
Yeah, 4 cycles. So that's a lot of time, right? So that's like 16 years with the same equipment. So it
with a
was
piece
kind
of shit, let's face it.
No, obviously RSX did very good. When he got elected, it was like the hybrid thing. You know, it was good for kind of formula, or he performed as well in the very light wind. So that's what they needed at that time. I think that in that moment, I was part of the whole thing, the trials there. I was the sailor that Patrick Deaton presented to showcase his board and to sail it in the water. It was like a hybrid formula board, similar to RSX, but different shape. And at that time, Formula was the best, let's say, the best thing out there performing. But because the games were going to be in light wind places like in China, then they needed something to perform in extremely light, because they knew that there was not going to be enough wind for a Formula concept at that time. So that's why kind of RSX got elected, that kind of hybrid board that would perform very good as a Formula board, and then it will perform as well if the wind was extremely light. Obviously, the equipment presented at that time was a lot lighter, and it was getting into plane and saleable as Formula in very, very light wind. So it was very good, but then unfortunately later, because of some breakages and all that, then the board had to be reinforced, and then everything got a bit heavier. So then the planing ability or sailing, the whole equipment as in Formula, started in a much higher wind range. So
yeah, basically it was not as good as Formula in any even high wind range, and then not as good as the race board in the light wind range. Yeah, so it was hybrid, but it's quite hard to do that. But anyway, on to 16 years later when
so 16 years later, obviously foiling came. Maybe the first place where we saw foiling was in the America's Cup, probably, and then the kiters were starting to foil and compete, and I think we jumped on the whole thing probably just after the kiters did, and we started doing some foil development. After I was in a race in Silvaplana some years ago where it was kind of the first event for the kiters with those foil kites and the foils, and then we did the marathon there, and they were triple the speed than us. And at that time, I remember I just bought a whole set, and then I came back to Argentina during the European winter, and our summer down there, and I just learned out of nowhere. I knew how to kite, but then I just learned, and I said, "Oh, this is amazing!" So at that time, Antoine Albo was foiling already quite a lot, and he's probably the one that brought all of us into the game, right? I think he was pushing really hard. He was going to San Francisco. He was meeting with the guys from F4, which were already very popular on kite foils. And then there was a group in San Francisco of more experienced windsurfers from like legendary windsurfers, like Steve Sylvester, Mike Sajcek, and all these guys, which were already foil windsurfing in San Francisco. And probably those guys were the ones that pushed at the beginning for this to happen. Obviously, like a million years ago, Rush Randall, I remember he was trying some foils in Maui. I was in some photo shoots of Nilpra that he was doing the foiling at that time. But it never became popular, or it was too hard, or we were like, it was too difficult at the time, and probably obviously not as difficult.
It was difficult. I don't know why, because of the wings, I guess, and super heavy because it was all aluminum, welded aluminum foils. So I tried one of these. It was terrible.
Yeah, it was terrible. And then the wings were very small, so it was very technical. It was very, very difficult. So then, when foiling came into windsurfing, then there was that opportunity to try to change. RSX after 4 cycles seemed like it could be a good moment to change. And then obviously there was this really strong campaign from the Dutch team with Dorian van Rieselman, or whatever, however his surname is mentioned. Sorry for that, Dorian. And then Aaron McIntosh and Nick Dempsey and all these guys, which were the top guys from RSX, and even the top guys said, "Hey, we need a change. We're putting our lives into this. 4 cycles is enough." And they said, "Okay, we need to. There's a good moment to change." We had been doing foiling since 3 years at least in the PWA level, so we were quite established on that sense. So we were racing, we were competing. We had events in New Caledonia, in Japan, in many places, in Silt, and it was kind of a combination of different things. That was the right moment for it to come through. So then this group of guys with some brands and a lot of enthusiastic people went for it, right? And then we managed to, they managed to to open up the game and to call for sea trials, as it says. So then there was an opportunity for all the windsurfing community to present the new equipment to go for the following Olympics. And then Starboard, Severn, obviously Starboard Foils jumped into that in a very strong way. I was part of the group there, leading that group, presenting everything in Garda and developing the stuff and testing the stuff. So over there in Garda, we can discuss about Garda, but then that was the right moment. I think last year, at the beginning of the year, there were some key moments that, they were called for trials, and then a lot of brands jumped into the project, and we all were kind of, okay, we cannot let go this opportunity. This is the time to make it happen. So then a lot of guys worked in collaboration to make it happen. That's kind of
yeah. So out of the sea trials in Garda, what was called back then iFoil, and now it's called the IQ Foil, got the recommendation, but then it needs to be put to a vote from all the sailing federations from around the world, right? The council, the World Sailing Council.
Yeah.
So then you go to Bermuda and you get thrown into, let's say, a slightly more political world maybe than you were used to for the last 20 years on PWA or whatever. I don't know. It's a totally different surrounding, right? Totally different scenario. Describe.
It was difficult. Already what happened in Garda was quite difficult, very political, because there was maybe around like 8 to 10 world sailing officials, like the chairman of the events committee, the chairman of the equipment committee, then the chairman of technical, and a lot of very important people from world sailing, which were going to come and scrutinize all the equipment and to make a call, to say if actually it makes sense to change or not to change. And then we had a lot of sailors, like specialists coming from all different disciplines, let's say, but mainly from RSX. So we presented the stuff there, and then you have to be very careful what to say. We come there as I was there kind of as an expert, let's say, a foiling expert. I was the current world champion from the PWA, so I had to go in the water and teach some guys and show them, and then knowing that most of these guys are from RSX and they are very good at that, so maybe they like foiling, but at the same time they fear that it's a new world and maybe they lose their status. I know there were a million things happening at the same time, so that was already really stressful and really interesting to go through, right? Obviously, I stayed really. I think all of us, we straight away after the first day, we all everybody that was there agreed that foiling was the way to go. So we all were working really good and collaborating with each other from different brands and everything, because we all thought that whatever foiling equipment would be a great success, right? So it all went really, really good, and with a super nice atmosphere, and all the crew from World Sailing and all the testers, everybody was really convinced of the choice. Then it turned out that IQ Foil or iFoil at the time was the elected one, and then, as you say, everything went to Bermuda, to a completely different, even one more notch higher, like a different step. All the federations, not the federations, but all the MNAs or representatives from different federations around the world were there, and that was completely different to anything I have experienced. I was there for 10 days. There were a lot of meetings, all the meetings that happen at World Sailing every year, events meeting, equipment meeting, the jury meeting, the officials, then medical, a lot of different meetings, and I was going to all of them. I was trying to see what was happening. A lot of smart people in there, and all those meetings. I've learned a lot. I was not surprised, of course, in a very good way, how things are managed up there, and how everybody think for the best of the sports of each different discipline and different, let's say, class. And it was really, really nice. But obviously, I was there to make it happen. We were recommended. Then the whole thing needed to go to council, which most of the countries They vote like in groups, in regions, and then if that was approved, then it had to go to the AGM, where every country would vote as an individual country. So it had to go through 2 votes, and as well, there was a presentation done at the events committee and an equipment committee, right, where all the M&As that went there, they listened to the explanation and why the equipment committee made the recommendation of the IFOL, and then the events committee makes why they made the recommendation of IFOL. So then obviously all these M&As or representatives are there, they listen what happened, and then at council and at the AGM they vote. So yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. 10 days there, I didn't leave the hotel. In between meetings, in between time breaks, just talking to all these federations and explaining why I was there. Most of them really, really respected the recommendations from the working parties, right? So let's say the 10 officials that were from World Sailing in Garda, they obviously went back to their committees and made a recommendation and made a report. So all the federations really respected that report and based their vote, let's say, over that analysis and that report. Obviously, there were some strong countries which were against the whole thing. In the end, the final vote was quite in favor, a lot more in favor than what we thought it was going to be. But obviously, these really strong nations that wanted to continue with RSX, because obviously they had invested a lot of money and their sailors were really, really high up there. So for them, it meant that if RSX would continue, they would probably have guaranteed themselves medals, right? And then all the money invested, and then when you get medals, a lot of budget comes into the sailing federation, and it's very important for the countries, obviously. So the change was hard for them. So these countries, they tried to let's say at the AGM not to ratify and to bring it up again. But obviously, not obviously, but all the votes that came at the AGM supported the decision at council, which went through, and then they supported the idea that all the reports from the events and the equipment committee and all that. So it actually went really, really strong in favor of IFOL, and then that was it, right? I couldn't kind of believe it, when we were in that meeting the last day at the AGM, and the decision was done, and then there was a voting, and I saw in the screen the decision. Then it was like, oof, it was like finally it's decided. But then at that very second, let's say, after 2 or 5 seconds, I'm like, oof, now there's going to be a lot more work, and it's going to be a shitloads of things to be done. And straight away, I realized, okay, this is we really need to make this happen. I mean, the decision is done, but then the ball is back on us, and we have to make everything happen. And from that moment till today, I've been working almost 10 to 12 hours a day on this project, right? I don't sail so much lately, but it changed my life a lot.
Yeah. And obviously you're there, as you mentioned, in that hotel. I can imagine that scene. There's a bunch of, how many countries represented, like 100 countries or whatever, yeah? And each one of those representatives have sort of a different background. He can be a sailor from laser. He can be an optimist coach. He can be a politician that went all the steps from the bottom of the federation to running it, whatever, all sorts of different people. And you're there as a Starboard Severn representative, lobbying for the class, right? So let's imagine I'm a representative of Japan, let's say, I don't know which side they took, but let's say I'm a representative of Japan, and you sit down with me to try to convince me to vote your way. How does that work?
Yeah. You say it was very, very awkward, everything. First of all, I was much younger than anybody there, right? And most of the people that are there not necessarily had like an Olympic class career. Obviously, they are probably all sailors, but not necessarily they have a background of...
not really windsurfers, right? Not like...
And windsurfers windsurfers over there is like almost none, maybe one windsurfer. So definitely I was looked in a way that I was like, who is that guy? No connection actually. But because we had a lot of support from the World Sailing working party that was in Garda, and they had already expressed and they had already circulated the reports from Garda and that what they expect the new windsurfing class to be. Most of the countries were aware of the topic, so then they were always really, really, let's say, open to discuss with me or to talk with me. And probably I was someone with a very different topic to discuss, right? And something very new for them. So they were actually really interested to talk to me. It's not that I came to discuss on some rules or some judges or some medical issue or some boring stuff, Actually, for them was something new. Foiling is very well seen with America's Cup, so they actually wanted to learn about it. I had some videos on my phone, obviously, to show them from the trials and some action stuff from events from the PWA. So they were all really, really actually happy to engage and to talk about it. Most of the time, they reacted very good. Obviously, the strong countries from RSX, they were like, I'm sorry, but I'm not interested.
Okay. So let's change that scenario. I'm China.
Yeah.
Hello, Gonzalo.
Yeah.
Why would I change to foiling? We are so strong in RSX. We worked 16 years to get Olympic medals. We have golds.
Yeah.
Why would we change?
Yeah, so actually China had their own translator, and when I came to talk to them, they were not really interested to talk. They were like, okay, they told me straight away, let's talk after the final decision, right? That's what they told me. And then that was it. But obviously all the other ones, we had a very good conversation with Korea, all the European countries which were more aware of the situation. They were really supporting the idea. So in general, right? I don't know, Holland, Germany, France, all these countries.
Okay. You don't want to play my game. It's okay.
Yeah. No, it's okay. But the thing is, I didn't even have that conversation with the Korean team. It was fun because there was obviously a kind of a language barrier, but they had their own translator, so it was fun. But then China, I have a funny story with China, but that came later, so I couldn't actually talk to them because they were like, no way you're gonna convince us. But then after the final vote was done, we came out of the room, and IFOL was elected, and then I kind of walked next to the Chinese representative, and then she was she wanted to talk to me suddenly. But it was really good because then she said, okay, well done, and then she obviously accepted the change, and then she said, well, this needs to change. Now we need to invest on this. And she wanted straight away to know how would be the best way to make it happen, right? And she even mentioned that the translator mentioned to me she wants you to come to coach to China, and I kind of laughed because I thought she was joking, I thought that she was being sarcastic, and then the translator is like, no, don't laugh. She's actually being serious, I'm like, oh well, but. No, most of the countries, they took the decision and they invested and they started going full power. And I'm sure that they're going to be really good guys coming from China. And we already can see, from obviously, it's not a bad word to say, but Israel was one of the strong countries that were against it. But now we could see already in Garda, in the woman fleet, they won. Right, so even at that time they were protecting their interests because it makes sense that they had invested a lot. Then now they embraced the change, they invested on it, and now they came to a couple of events and they're already leading in the women's. So most of the countries that were against it now they are full power on it.
Yeah, you think this system is good? You think that it's such. On the outside, if you're in the windsurfing world, it's maybe slightly different perspective. But from the outside, Olympics is a very big thing. It's a very, like, it's supposed to be the creme de la creme, of sports, and in many disciplines it is. Windsurfing was obviously something very different for the Olympics than the rest of the, let's say, windsurfing community was doing throughout the years. But do you think that the system of being under sailing and countries deciding, etc., is maybe not something that could be reformed, or for windsurfing as a sport, for the interest of windsurfing, of having the best windsurfing product, let's say, best windsurfing event out there in the Olympics,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a very good question, and very, very hard to answer. There are some people thinking that we shouldn't even be underwater sailing at all, right? That we should have our own thing going on, and maybe have our own arrangements with the Olympic Committee and be in the games, like from the side, or with like a beach sport, let's say, or like surfing,
surfing. But it came out now, the sport is a few hundred years old, and it took them, ages.
Yeah.
So
but probably it took them ages to get into the Olympics, because they could not like come in through like a bigger organization. Maybe obviously they are very big, right? But we came in, or we were there since a million years already at the Olympics, probably thanks to world sailing, right? Or the sailing world. So it's kind of hard to move out. Similar to kite, not kite. Now it's in the underwater sailing, and they are as well, no, in a similar way as us. We're probably the both more beach sports, right? We can launch from the beach. We don't really need a marina and stuff like that. So both of us, let's say, in a way, could be outside world sailing. But there are many good things in world sailing. That everything has been running quite good. Hard to say if it would be better or not better. At the moment, we are in there, and we are strong in world sailing. We are one of the classes, especially now, that will bring a lot of excitement to world sailing and will protect the medals, let's say. So there's not going to be. Obviously, we are, as a sailing sport, sometimes it's hard to compete to all these other sports which are more entertaining to watch. So all these sports with balls and all these things, that they get a lot of coverage from the Olympics, and that's giving a lot of money to their federations, let's say, because they can sell their rights on TV and all that. Obviously, those sports are really strong, and they have their own federations. And with us, windsurfing now will be one of the sports that will make it a little more fun to watch, especially in the light, when the images in light wind sailing in general are quite boring if you're comparing it to whatever other radical sport or other traditional sport. So if we're going to be able to go out or not from our sailing, it's hard to say. But yeah, definitely we're going to give a good push to keep all the sailing, let's say, classes in the games, and to make it attractive to the Olympic Committee to stay in there at the Olympics, and not to reduce the medals in general, for the medals that actually world sailing receives, for all the different classes.
Yeah, this is what I guess this is exactly what I was getting at, that my personal opinion, because we had a million discussions, that in the end is about the product that you showcase out there. Because what are we actually selling as windsurfing? We're probably selling a show, right? Trying to compete with major sports and whatever. And, if you have to buy sailing as a package, and you have dinghies, and you have, windsurfing or kiting is probably the most exciting or innovative or whatever. But still, like, it's not, like racing in 8 knots, course racing as it was in RSX, is not really, doesn't move the needle. And I know that in the purist world, let's say, sailing world is not a popular opinion, actually. They're very, is it a good take that I'm guessing, that I'm feeling that they're really traditional in their, in how sailing is a very sport with a long tradition, yeah, and that's really important, seems like.
No, for sure. It's a super traditional sport, and they want to protect all this tradition, of course. But there's a lot of people that are actually trying to make it a lot more modern, let's say, or more towards America's Cup or Sail GP. I mean, obviously those guys got it right. No, they're making a show. They're making a system of eliminations that they try to make a grand final, and you actually 2 days of racing or whatever. It's they're trying to make it really, really cool to watch, and for really. So really, really cool to watch for someone that has no clue about sailing. That's important thing. We need to make it attractive for the wider audience. People that actually never seen windsurfing. Now when they see us just foiling around, trying to understand why we're not touching the waves or why we're not touching the water, and they actually look at us. Like now we have this first reaction for the normal regular guy that is just walking on the beach or in a marina, then we need to make use of this attraction that we made and make it even more spectacular. Put formats that that are fun to watch. Let's say that's one of the main reasons why we have slalom in the light, because in extreme light conditions, if we go upwind, downwind, first the gear is too small, and then second, if you have a lot of guys tacking and coming out of plane and we go far away, it's hard to understand who is leading. And then in slalom, it's obviously a little bit of following the leader, but at that kind of wind range, it's very good and it's easy to watch and easy to understand. So everybody that is walking by or wants to watch it understands what's going on. It's just 3 or 4 jives. Everybody has to go through those jives, and then there's a finish. And even if it's light, people are stopping to watch that and see how people are jiving through the marks without touching down, making foil jibes and all that. It's much more attractive than
you're gonna stop.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's a good point as well, because then when somebody stops, it's actually very easy to understand that they suddenly went from a significant high speed to almost not going at all, right? So the difference of speed there is very easy to understand visually. So people are saying, that guy fucked it, now he touched the water, look, he's going nowhere. The other guy made it good because look how much distance it is. So it's actually very easy to understand. So the whole slalom thing, actually, the main idea came from We're Sailing, right? From the events committee. And these are traditional sailors, right? But they actually know, they need to make it more attractive. We need to make it more attractive, and that's one of the main reasons why IFOL was elected, was because in the light wind was proposed to do slalom. So that really matched what they wanted to see, right? They want to really, let's say in a way, make the new windsurfing discipline really, really attractive and easy to understand.
Yeah. So that's kind of the big picture. And then we get to the smaller picture, which is the windsurfing world, and the way that for years, that kind of Olympic world totally didn't cross with the let's say professional side, which the peak of that was always the PWA, right? How do you see it now? Because I don't know, I see like people have different opinions and different feelings, and some people they feel like it's competing against each other, and some people feel like it can really, collaborate for the good of the sport, and there's animosity between certain people because these guys, they've been told that PWA is something, and then the PWA guys been told all their lives that the Olympic is crap and whatever, so how do you see that situation now that you're actually not one of those sides, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that to start with, we all know that to be really competitive on RSX, you needed to have like a certain level of fitness, which is it's amazing. They need to be really strong and a lot of aerobic. I mean, they need to be really, really strong on their physical side, right? And then as well, you need to be quite light to be performing good, and especially because they race in lighter winds, right? So that really goes that really doesn't match the prototype of a slalom sailor or the prototype of a PWA sailor, right? Because we kind of know from many years of racing, and the PWA has been there for a long time, that the body type and the body weight that you need is completely different. So having sailors that would do good on RSX or an Olympic level, we're not necessarily going to be doing good at the PWA. We've seen people coming from their side to our side, being, let's say, Pont or Casper, and then guys from our side going into that side when RSX just came up, like Jesper Westerstrom or even Arnon or Steve, maybe for one event was fun or two events were fun, but then straight away it didn't work, right? It didn't work for both groups, let's say. So that's where I think we split, and it was very hard to have someone doing very good at both disciplines. I don't think that some people say, I'm not going to do that because it's shit, and the other guys were not going to say, I'm going to do that other thing because it's shit. It's just, it didn't work out, for your body type or for what you were doing. And then obviously the let's say the joke from the PWA sailors to the RSX guys is when you see a light wind race of 3 or 4 knots, and they're just pumping for 30 or 40 minutes. And then obviously people say, that's not windsurfing. No, that's like, I don't know, that's like a pump competition. Just go rowing, just go on a boat and go rowing. It's the same thing, right? And obviously they have tactics, they have technique, they do a lot of things, right? That is important to go along with that rowing. And probably we as PWA sailors, we were like, that's just rowing, And then the joke they make on all of us is, they're just fat guys, that just sit in there and just try to go fast. There's no tactics, There's nothing going on. Just go to that first mark, survive the jibe, and that's it. But there's a lot more going on than just that, no? We all know how extreme slalom is, how accurate you need to be in the starts. If you are half a second late, you're done. If you come to the first mark and you're not a good jiber, you have no chance. There are no rules. There are good things on both ends, right? And I think that now, as we have seen, a lot of RSX guys are doing IQ foil, and a lot of PWA guys are doing IQ foil. And yeah, there is that rivalry that you suggest, those guys who is doing good and the other guys who is doing good. And I think it's it's a healthy rivalry. I mean, there's no, in the end, there are good laughs, there's good chat at the beach, and people are learning from one side and the other guys are learning from the other side. I might sound being maybe very, very political here, but I kind of see it how it is, I obviously have friends on both ends, and I've seen that many from each side are doing very good. I saw that in Garda, like the British team, maybe they didn't have much background on foiling and from PWA, and then they got like 5th and 6th, guys that never did a PWA event in their lives, and not so heavy as well. And then obviously, Nico and Basti were 1st and 2nd. They're probably the 2 guys that have the most experience on foil. They have been foiling for 3 or 4 years. Both of them have been part of developing programs. They've known a lot of how to tune their stuff. They obviously know how to go fast. They're very technical guys. Basti was many years very good at Formula windsurfing as well. Nico, obviously, we know that he comes as well from some Olympic background, and he's obviously brother with Thomas, so he knows he's probably more into the pumping stuff, and he's very good, and obviously knows he's here. So I think at the moment we are in the middle. No, there are some very good guys from the PWA and some very good guys coming from RSX, and it's a very healthy fleet.
Yeah, I think very soon you're not gonna be remembering where the guy came from. I mean, for me, it's already kind of like that. You don't really. But what about the events, the tours, all that? It seems like all of a sudden there's gonna be some overlap. There's gonna be some sort of going to the same places, and then are expensive, and it's like that all of a sudden these worlds are kind of on collision course a little bit. And how do you see to somehow make make it work
Yeah.
as a collaboration, rather than
sure,
going
yeah.
against each other as it has for the last 30 years.
Yeah. No, yeah. Can I just make a quick note on the last topic? To be fair, we didn't mention the freestylers work, right? We got some freestylers in the tour as well, like Steven and then Amado, Babrocker, and they both show like really strong level, and they come from freestyle. They're freestylers, and they did extremely good as well. Steven was third or fourth in the marathon, and then
Amado before the first start in Silvaplana, he asked me, "Hey, so which hand has priority? I have the right hand forward has priority or left hand forward?"
Yeah,
So
exactly. So so that shows, and they were doing extremely good. So that's really cool as well, that you get like freestylers and then they come in and they're doing extremely good. And then another one is that I really like to see in Garda was Rytis from Lithuania. He's like the tallest guy out there. I think he's 2 meters tall. And then in the marathon, which actually ended up being quite light at moments, and I think he's like 95 kilos, something like that. And he came up second, So first was Kiran. Second was Rytis, who probably has some PWA experience, but he comes more from Formula and from regional sailing, Formula windsurfing, and obviously doing a lot of slalom events, IFCA events, and then being part of the training in Tenerife. And a guy that probably didn't have a good result never in his life at really top level. And in the longest race of the event, he comes up second, right? And then third was, I think, Alex from France, and fourth was Steven. So there was a big diversity there of sailors on like a really long race, which I think it was really cool to see. And then back to what you were saying now. Yeah, obviously, in the past we didn't collide at events, right? Because RSX had all the traditional regattas, all the races like Palma, Miami, Yer, Medemblik, Kiel, all these regattas that most of the other Olympic classes
together
are
with
doing.
other sailing disciplines,
Yeah, together with all the other sailing disciplines, all the Olympic classes, right? So obviously we as PWA, we never came there. We never came there because they competed in, if there was no wind, they competed. And then we came once.
You came once, apparently. Took you about 2 days, no, to leave?
Where?
To some RSX event, no?
I went to Turkey. Yeah, that was not fun. We can talk about that later. But as well, the PWA Tour, obviously there's prize money. So then you go to events where there's good wind and they're more traditional for, let's say, slalom sailing or Formula. At that time when we had Formula in the PWA. And there's like a PWA circuit, and then there was an RSX or Olympic classes circuit, right? And I think that now a lot of PWA organizers want to do an IQ foil, and we will obviously respect as much as possible that those events are PWA events. And then if we can do a collaboration, then it's great. But obviously we're not gonna try to come in and take those events. And then all the events from the Olympic classes, traditional regattas, they want to do IQ foil, and we're trying to make a tour that could be as well similar to PWA, something like it used to happen in the past with the Grand Prix and Eurocups, prize money that then we can bring our race crew, and maybe these events become more important than traditional regattas. So then in the end, maybe all the sailing teams, they decide to do more our IQ foil tour, let's call it, instead of so much on the traditional regattas. But that's something that is a bit of a dream, no? To me, my ideal would be to have a sort of PWA for the IQ foil, that everybody can come, there's prize money, and then we have the same race crew, so they can handle the slalom in the light, and then the stronger winds, we do the course racing, or not stronger, no, but 8 or 10 knots up. So I see a bit of a challenge. To go to Miami, Palma, Yer, all these different places where you have to meet different race directors and explain them how the slalom works, how some people advance to a final A, final B, and all that. So we need to continue working on the format, how to make it more effective, and to make it, let's say, format friendly for all these traditional regattas, which we obviously know I'm not going to be going to all of them while we go in the first year, but then not the second year, let's say. So we need to come up with a format that actually anywhere in the world, being a national event or a small continental event, like it could be in South America, that those guys, let's say, can run it and they can do the same thing that we're doing at the Europeans or at the Warriors, right? When we're going to have everybody there and the official crew, let's say. But that's what I see. I think that in all these events, PWA events, as well, a lot of the IQ foil sailors that never did PWA events, they're going to try to join, and that's really cool. You know, a lot of guys have contacted me already, asking me what sails they should get and what slalom boards, and they want to really join. You know, some events, and I think that's really cool as well. On the girls, I think that there is a very big opportunity to have a super strong PWA women's tour, a racing tour. You know, suddenly there were like 60 or 65 girls in Garda, and all these girls are looking for doing events because obviously they want to get better on the slalom and how to improve in slalom, most probably doing PWA slalom events, right, to understand how it works. So I think in general, it's gonna be a really, really cool sync, no? A cool synchronization between the both worlds, and at least that's how I see it.
Yeah. Okay. Enough of this IQ foil Olympic whatever greeting. Let's get to you.
Yeah.
How the hell does an Argentinian? I mean Argentina, except for obviously Francisco Goya, who's an absolute legend, but also his story is more connected to Maui and Hawaii and whatever. But how does an Argentinian kid, actually a youth world champion in Mistral One Design or Aloha? No, Mistral One Design, right?
Mistral, yeah.
How do you become a professional windsurfer from there? Like, how does this work?
Yeah, it was very strange. When I look back, I'm like, how did that happen? Like, I don't even understand it. I mean, if you tell me that now, someone from Argentina will like do all the things that I did and be as lucky as I was, you know, with opportunities that I went there and it turned out good, you know, it's very unlikely. The story of Francisco is we were from similar neighborhoods from the north part of Buenos Aires, like where all the sailing clubs are and where all the windsurfing happens, let's say, in the area of Buenos Aires, or most of it. So I think that, not to tell his story, but I think he finished school and then he just went to Maui with Lalo, with his brother, and they just went there and they stayed there for all their lives, you know. And then he was dreaming, you know, to become like a professional windsurfer, and then he was 24 hours a day in Ho'okipa. I think that's how that happened. obviously, plenty of talent there, and I think that's his a little bit that way. But I come from the similar place, no, from very maybe same neighborhood, let's say, and yeah, I was Mistral World Champion in '97. And at that time, the Argentinian team, Olympic team, was very strong. There were like 3 very strong guys doing the Olympic thing, the Mistral. So then the main guy got second in Atlanta and second in Sydney. So the team was quite strong. So I obviously learned a lot from them. But when I finished school, I started studying architecture for a couple of years. And then I left Mistral because I became slightly heavier. So I was like 75 kilos. So I said, no, this Mistral thing is not for me. I was obviously on the heavy side. And I decided to stay back home and started studying. And at that time, I started doing some Formula windsurfing. And a friend of mine, one time, he told me, hey, why don't we go to compete to US, to the US Open? He kind of invited me, you know, and I went there, and then I met Jimmy Diaz, Micah, Kevin, Phil, and I came there, and I did actually really good. You know, I was like, nobody knew me, and I was lucky enough that the first day was really, really light, and the wind was like just changed, and I was the only one. I don't know. I just saw like the change, and I started port, and I rounded on first by miles, and then actually I think at Kevin passed me. So I finished second on that first race. And then the second race, I kind of finished fourth or fifth, just behind all the pros. But at the end of the day, because there were no discards or whatever, I was like second or third. And then I remember like on the open ceremony, like Kevin and Phil, they were like, came to me and they're like, who the fuck are you? You know, and like I was very up there and nobody knew me. I was like 75 kilos from Argentina with a mullet because I was playing rugby as well. And at that time was cool. And then Jimmy at that time, he said, maybe you should start. I was with Castro, and then he said, maybe you should start racing with Neil Pride. And he got me in contact with a guy in charge from all South America, from Adventure Sports, Eduardo Owen, and he got me sponsored. And then I got invited to go to an Asian event, like Asian Championships. And then at that time, I remember Wojtek was there and Alex Grinis. And a similar thing, like there was no wind, and then we did only one race that I managed to win it because almost nobody was playing and I was playing. And then they counted the race. But you know, so I was winning. Like,
fuck, you must have been Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. So I was really lucky, you know. In the US Open, kind of a similar thing. So it kind of favored my body weight and that. And then in Asia, the same thing. You know, only one race. There was no wind in Hua Hin. And then I was leading the event at the last date, and then we got like 8 knots, and obviously I had half the speed of Wojtek, you know. So anyways, I did kind of okay. I think I got second, so I beat Alex. And then the whole crew, like Starboard and Neil Pride, told me, you should definitely go to the first Euro Cup in Europe. So I came there to the first Euro Cup in Garda in Malcesine, where there were like 120 guys. And a similar thing, again, you know, Malcesine, light wind. We were not sailing with the north wind, so we were sailing with this like really light wind, tactical wind from the south every afternoon. And I was racing really good. So then with a very strong fleet, like 120 guys, and I was doing like really good. So I think that until the last day I was on second. And then on the last day, actually, I think that Steve won, Micah got second, and I got third. And that was my first event. And I remember something really funny from that event, that because I came late, I was staying at the Piccolo Hotel and not at the Malcesine Club. So I was launching from there. So during the event itself, I was kind of leading or second, and everybody was talking at the beach, who the fuck is that guy from Argentina? And I was not launching from the club, so nobody really knew on the beach who I was. And then one day I went to like grab a bite to the club, and then I remember that there was like Ross, Benny, Arnon, all those guys were there. And one of them was like, who the fuck is that guy from Argentina? You know, I was like very shy. I didn't even say anything. You know, I was like very shy, and I came back. And then on the last race of the event, I remember being next to Steve, and you know how anal you are when you are from Mistral. You glue to the other guy on the start. And I was not planning, you know, and like Steve was telling me like, come on, go already. Don't stay here with me, you know. And then he looked at my sail number, and he suddenly went, you're the guy that is like, you're the guy like I'm fighting against. And it was like the last race of the event, you know, like, and that was fun. That was my first event. And obviously I met Ross, Arnon, Benny, Peter Bell, Jamie Lever, Steve, Micah, Jimmy. Well, Jimmy and Micah I knew from the US Open, and Andrea Cookie, all these guys, like all the famous European guys, you know, Brian Rugill, Jesper Verstestrom, Sam Arla, all these guys were all the Polish team, which was extremely strong. Pond, Jarek, Poland, and all the other ones, you know, all the strong guys, right? And at that time, because I did good, then was the same time that there was an economical crisis in Argentina, right? So I was supposed to go there like for a week, and then Sven suggested from Star Wars. Sven suggested that why wouldn't I just stay the whole summer in Europe and do all the Euro Cups, you know, and stay there to race. And he kind of sponsored my whole stay in Europe. And at that time, I made a phone call to my parents, and they're like, just stay in Europe, you know, here it's a mess. It's a very, very bad situation with economical crisis. Both of my parents are architects, and the situation there was terrible. So they're like, just go for it, you know. If there's a time in your life that just go for it, just go for it. And so that's when I stayed, and it all started there. From there, I went in a car with Jamie Lever and Arnon to Portugal, all the way to Cascais, and then we went from there to I think to Silt, And then from Sil to Poland to all 3 events in a row, like Miss Destroyer, Urata, and Hueva, and then to Silvaplana, then Portugal again. So that's when it started. And then I kind of was extremely lucky that I got sponsored straight away, right? So I came that year and already got offered like really good sponsorship deals, let's say. So that's why I say, you know, if I think now how lucky I was, you know, now it's very hard to actually get sponsorship deals, especially with the situation we are, to get money from companies and to get all these opportunities. I mean, after the event in Garda, I stayed in Garda, I think 1 week, testing sails with Jimmy and Andrea and with Robert, and straight away they were teaching me a lot of stuff, you know, and started learning. Then I had many periods of testing with Steve and Antoine when they were in Nil Pride, and all these opportunities, I always went for them, and I always climbed, you know, to the next step, and everything went really, really well, you know. It could have gone really, really bad. I could have gone to the US Open, to Corpus Christi, and it could have been 30 knots every day, like as it normally is, and I would have been last. And then when I went to Asia, to Thailand, Thailand is quite light, but it could have been windy, and I could have been as well, like 6 or 7, and the opportunity would have never come. And we could have gone to Garda and raced in the morning every day with north wind with 20 knots, and I wouldn't be even top 50 maybe, you know. But all these things that happened, I always think back and I think, wow, you know, everything went really, really, I was really, really lucky, really lucky. I mean, the opportunities were there, but I was lucky, very lucky.
So yeah, so you mentioned, and I guess the next couple years, like the next 5 to 8 years or whatever, you basically spent in a van with Arnon or with Ross Williams or with Benny van der Steen or with one of those guys driving around Europe from event to event. And from what I understand, these were some fun times. Your best story from that early time.
Yeah, obviously at that time we were all, I mean, how cool was going from event to event in vans in Europe, getting prize money, getting free accommodation, and then obviously having some parties, you know. And at that time when you are like 22, 23, you know, it was pretty fun and good times. I think I traveled many kilometers with Benny driving, because I didn't have a license, I think, or maybe I was not allowed to drive, I don't know. Or Benny driving, or Ross driving, or Peter Bell, or Arnon, or Jamie. We were like a group of like 10 guys, which were like the best guys at that time, along with Wojtek and some other guys, right? But we were all coming kind of top 10 at every event, you know. So everybody was doing prize money. We all had good sponsorship deals, and as you suggest, you know, it was like 5 to 7 years like that. And then we had a couple of strong events like the Formula Worlds in Silt or in Hueva, or somewhere around there, you know. And then it was very good times. At that time that was the let's say the PWA was not happening at that time. There was no slalom, and that was the racing scene was that at the time.
Yeah. Okay, so Arnon told us the story that I think that he claimed that you were with him. So let's confirm that he drives onto the train in Nibul to go to Silt, and then he really needs to take a shit really badly, and then that you convinced him to jump off the train, do it in the bushes, and then jump on. And as he had his he was halfway through, the train started and you had to pull him up. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Maybe it happened. Probably before the train started. Yeah. But I mean, there are a lot of very, very funny. I mean, a better story than that one is once when we were I don't know if he told this one, but when we were coming back from Silt, we had a lot of stuff and we had to put stuff on the roof. So we packed stuff in the roof, and then the belts broke, you know, and then like one of the board backs was like going out from the van, and you know, in every town there's like this thing for mail, you know, like a pole for the mail, and the board bag was about to hit all these things. It was going to be like a disaster, right? So then our nonets had had to ring the handbrake. You know, he had to pull the handbrake of the whole train. So he had to stop the train and to repack the bags and strap them better with the guy that was taking care of the train.
Yeah. And then also legend has it that you became like the national hero of Austria in podiums. After there was this guy that was annoying everybody, and you just took care of him.
Yeah. That was weird. That was very weird. But I never had a fight like that. You know, definitely not a guy that goes out to a nightclub and wants to fight or stuff like that, right? But there, I don't know what happened, and this guy was annoying as fuck. He was very drunk, and somehow I saw that he was trying to I don't know, to get into a fight with the English guys, like the English freestylers. And then they were with their girlfriends, I think. So I just kind of said, okay, I'll just step in and try to get this guy away from them, you know. And I think that the guy just tried to hit me, and I don't know, I reacted like I snapped, you know, and and I don't know, something. It was like 2 seconds, but it was funny because it was full of windsurfers, and they were like, oh yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna drill you more about this. And then so that skinny kid gets a little bit of training, and then slalom comes back and you get thrown into that, you know, and you've had great results if you think from where you come from, you know, podiums. You almost won the event in Reggio Calabria. I remember I was standing on the start, actually. I think I was on or maybe you ran the final first and I was on the losers or something like this. And you switched just before the final to 7-8. And then basically you were leading to the first mark. And because I had to catch my time for the thing, I thought you won, you know, because once in light wind, if you lead, I mean, light wind was probably 18 knots or something, but for slalom, that's light wind. If you lead to the first mark, there's a big chance that you're going to win. So explain what happened from there, the one that got away.
Yeah, that was terrible. Well, it was a one hit, no? So we were there for a very long week and there was no wind. And then the very last hour, I think that the wind kicked in. So we went for it. And at that time, my big equipment was terrible. I could go nowhere. So my 8-6 and big board was terrible. And everybody was on that, right? So I said, if I go on this, I'm not going to even pass my first hit. So I went 7-8 and middle board straight. So I was just starting at the boat and coming down on everybody like full power on 7-8, like not barely going, but under power. So I was getting to the first mark and then people were catching me, but I managed to get into the final. So in the final, I was okay. I think the wind increased a little bit. So I had a killer start at the boat and I rolled everybody, me on 7-8 obviously and middle board and everybody on big stuff. So I jive the first one and I kind of get away from there. I do the next 2 jives and I'm like still leading by quite a good margin. And then I go to the last jive. And on the last jive, I remember Tine Slave was there waiting there. He was just cruising, you know, sailing, and he just was waiting there, like watching the action, no? So I'm like, fuck, I was thinking, no, I cannot fuck this jive, you know. If you jive that one, then you're like, that's it. So I jive there, I do the jive, and that was it, you know, like full planing jive, I hook, and now I'm like, that's done. You know, I was last reach going to the finish. So this is done. I didn't even look back because I was playing in full power, aiming to the finish, and I knew that was it. So still, like I did, like I think 1/3 of the leg, and suddenly the wind dropped a little bit and got a little bit offshore, and I was like, fuck. So I was like, fuck. Now I have to point like really high, and I'm with my smaller stuff. I'm with a medium stuff. So I remember like my first reaction, I released a little alcohol and then I released too much. So I spin out and then I brought back the spin out. And then I knew already that, you know, that someone, whoever was behind me was going to be really close. But Bjorn, I kind of didn't look.
Out of all people.
Yeah. So Bjorn was just behind me. And so I just like, it's not that I shoot downwind, but instead of going, I went to the pin end was on the other side. So the boat, let's say the finishing boat was on the downwind side. So I was barely just making the boat. And on the last 10 meters or 15 meters, I had to de-hook and pump and not to catch the rope of the boat because it was anchored that way. I had to like push really high. And in the moment I crossed the finish line, knowing that I was crossing almost not planing, I looked upwind and I saw Bjorn crossing, maybe at the same time or just ahead. And I knew that he had passed me, And then I looked to the boat, and they're like, I think Frankie was there, and they were like this, like you didn't get it, like fuck. And I was like, obviously couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like so pissed, but well, it was a trade-off, right? I was fast on the first reach, and it was like flipping a coin. It could go my way, or I could have been last on the heat, or I could have been winning or second. Before coming to that event, if you would have told me that I was going to finish second, then I was like, oh, yeah, I would have signed straight, But then when you have it so close, even on the last reach, you are heading towards the finish line ahead, kind of with a good margin. Everything is fine, and then suddenly the wind disappears and you get upwind, and you're like, oh no, and then you spin out, and you're like, oh fuck no. And then everything was like in 10 seconds, it all went downhill. But that was one of the podiums I did. Then I did in Austria another year. I did a podium. I was third. We had more races there. It was not only one race. And then as well, I did a podium. I think I came second in Silt one year that we did more racing. The year I was with Star Wars 1.7. I would probably, if I had to think one of my events of slalom events that I feel not proud, but the one that I think that actually did very good probably was that event in Silt, right? Because we did 4 eliminations in Silt. It takes long, you do every round, every heat. And then I finished second behind Matteo. I don't remember who was third, but maybe Julien can tell. That was probably my most proud moment of slalom. Obviously, I had my downsides in Fuerte, which not that I hated, but coming from Buenos Aires, from 8 or 5 to 8 knot river, I never managed to perform good there somehow. It just feels impossible to drive.
This was my question, because your highlights were high. I think you got a podium on Loft also, no? Like 2000, what was it, 2014, I guess.
Yeah, when I was on Loft and Starboard, I came, I think, 5th and 6th in the world ranking, or 6th and 7th, 2 years in a row, I think. So that was pretty good, Now if I think, when you think, finishing 5th or 6th in the PWA world ranking, it's pretty strong, no? It's one of the. But I think that year, that year I remember, yeah. In Turkey, I end up 4th, tied in points with the 3rd place with Julien, and on the last race. So that was like my best result on Star Wars and Lost was Turkey, that I finished 4th. But that was again. What was one of those events in Turkey that we did a lot of racing. Well, a lot, like maybe 7 races or something like that.
Yeah,
like 2 discards and stuff.
My question was like, if you think that on big sizes, on 8.6, on 7.8, you could probably pull out a top 5, a podium, any event pretty much. And then if you think that any strong win event, you would come in and kind of, not be so confident and comfortable. Do you think back and like, knowing what you know now, shit, I should have done this or that, to really, get into, I don't know, world title range or whatever, like, how do you look back on? Because I don't want to retire you, but I guess you're kind of,
pretty much done. Especially from slalom. Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, it's kind of a mental thing, no, as well. It's kind of that's the condition that probably you don't perform very good, and then even moving to Tarifa, you would expect that you would come good, with all the conditions, the Levante conditions we get here, and all the training you put in on these conditions. I got a lot better. I mean, in the past, I mean, I've never sailed, I've never windsurfed in 30 knots or 25 knots. If I would have one day of 25 knots a year in Argentina, that was like, wow, you know, it's like, it felt like the storm changed, you know, from Red Bull. I was like 25 knots, you know. So then going to Fuerte or Gran Canaria at that time, there was a year in Gran Canaria that I was, when it was windy, I was like nowhere. And then when it would drop a little bit, then I was actually getting into finals and winning the loser finals and stuff like that, you know, with small stuff, with 6.2 and maybe the small board from F2, which was really, really cool, really good. But then it would increase 2-3 knots, and then I just couldn't jive anymore. I was falling in every jive. And then I don't know, there are a lot of good sailors out there with a lot more experience on that kind of wind, but that's not really an excuse, you know, because then when I moved to Tarif, and then I had so many days of Levante training with Benny and Luro and Finian, and then I would have expected that I would have gotten a lot better. And then many times I came to 40 being really fast, even when it was windy. Like I had really good speed, and I was coming to the first mark in good positions, you know, positions that I would qualify, you know, I even get to finals. And then I just couldn't jive. Maybe I would survive the first jive and second jive, but
yeah, I remember. I think I remember passing you on the last jive for the final.
Yeah. Then it just in Fuerte it kind of gets you, you know, and then you just become the target of everybody. Even when you're on that last fourth position, you know, you come to that last jive, and everybody know, I'm gonna pass
it up now.
Yeah. So then. Yeah, I don't know. High wind never was my thing in slalom, which is a bit strange because in Formula I was actually really good in strong wind. When we competed in Formula, I was always really good. When I compared myself to, obviously, Antoine was untouchable in strong, and Wojtek was really good. But considering the weight that I had, which I was kind of one of the light guys, I was always performing really good in strong. And in foil as well, you know, in foil, I remember that race in Japan that got really hairy, that I won it, you know, and then in Korea when it got windy as well, I did very good. And I was not really, I never was the heavy guys from the PWA. I was always kind of one of the light guys, right? So, or even when middle stuff condition on 7/8, or even in big board, if they would pick up in the water and everybody's overpowered, I would actually deal with the stuff quite good, you know. But then going to high wind slalom in Fuerte, it never happened. never did good.
Yeah, but the last year we stayed together, you actually enjoyed it. I remember racing for.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. But then obviously, I think it was a lot of psychological, you know. I mean, I think. I don't know. I can't really put much there. I mean, it's a great event, Fuerte. You know, it's the one of the pure slalom events. You know, and then you come there and you're doing shit. You know, it gets to your head. You know, this is kind of a proper event. You know, and it gets you. You know, and I don't know. But obviously, it's fun. You know, that's pure slalom. No, that's what the slalom is all about, I would say.
Yeah. So now that you are like, let's say, a little bit outside of it, and you're looking. Yeah, you're looking from the side a little bit more. You're looking maybe from the top a little bit more. How do you evaluate like a good racer? You know, you're like a fan of the sport. Also, you've been involved with helping Matteo with his world title campaigns and whatever. And like when how do you look and you see like, oh, this guy, you know, he has what it takes. You know, whether it be for slalom or for IQ foil, because in the end the good guys are kind of the good guys, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like kind of a good windsurfer is in any of the racing disciplines that we do now, they are good, you know. Especially Matteo. No, Matteo was very good in slalom, and then he came to Croatia to that Formula event, and he never did Formula. He did one event, and he was already like maybe top 20, and then. The next thing you know is foiling, and he wins sealed by a mile, you know, sealed, the event is sealed, and he won every race, you know. So obviously the good guys are really good, you know. Pierre this year in Civaplana, the Formula foil event, you know, he's like second most event, third, you know. I don't want to remind you about that one, but but he probably didn't have so much of a background of upwind downwind racing, and yet he comes there and he's like super strong, no? So all the good guys are really good.
Let me just say it. Same points. Finished same points, and he finished third, and I finished fourth.
yeah. You had a tough last day there with all those protests. Yeah, you were definitely unlucky. But back to when I look at sailors now. I mean, there's a very big difference when I was doing it or when we were doing it, like Arnon, Ross, Benny. We all really relied on speed, no? We kind of got the knowledge, or we inherit, like, if you were fast, you were good, or if you were slow, you forget about it, There was no really room to go training and to learn to drive and to become good with less speed, let's say. No, it was all really not biased. We all thought that it was all about speed, right? So we spent millions of hours testing fins, debouché fins and mats and stuff, we were really testing a lot of equipment, let's say. And then the younger generation, your generation with Matteo, Jordi, Marco, and Enrico, Malte, Bruno, when you guys started going to Tenerife and actually putting a lot of hours on training. You had like 1 million races before the first event, and we probably had here in Tarifa, maybe we did 1 day of racing before going to Korea, just to realize how rusty we were. So actually it was better not to even do that race, because then you would not think on the both flights going to Korea, fuck, we should have done more racing, At least you wouldn't have that feeling. Or survive a flight with Finian next to you saying like every 10 minutes, fuck, man, we should have done more starts. You guys improved a lot and made, all the racing skills come up a lot, like you brought the new level, let's say. Obviously, I forgot to mention Albi, Bambi leading kind of that group from Tenerife, He was kind of the first guy coming out from that group, really, really strong, being like extremely fast. Alberto, like extremely fast and as well improving a lot his skills, and he decided he needed to be better in high wind, so he went there, and the amount of hours that all your group, that group put was insane. And then we came to Korea, and then Albi wins, then Matteo gets into second in that final, and then all you guys started like getting better. And then we all kind of realized it's about speed, but it's a lot about racing as well. There are no rules. You can go through the heat, you can pass people, there's a lot of opportunities, and then that's what you came. That's what came probably with the new generation. And then Jordi, Matteo, on the previous years were doing extremely good. Now you and Rico, more guys coming from that group. Bruno winning a couple of finals. It all comes up more from hard training and leaving a little bit. Obviously, speed is important. You guys obviously test as well, and you're fast as fuck. But you brought the more training, as a group, and that I think that's what brought the level up. So when I see now, or when I look into a racer or a sailor or one of the guys to know, how good he is or how much potential, it's a lot about how much effort he's willing to put, the same effort that you guys put. All of you obviously were really well talented, but I think that it all came, you all stepped it up in the moment that you started training all together and putting like 1 million hours and 1 million starts and 1 million races before that first event in Korea. So you would come to that first event really, really well prepared. So at the moment, if I myself had to sponsor, or every time I need to put a good word on someone, I definitely would look at that group from going to Tenerife, or the strong group of French sailors that actually do a lot of races in France. That group from France, Pierre, Antoine, Pascal, Alex, Cedric, all these guys, they were doing a similar thing during the year, because the French national tour was really strong, obviously, right? So they brought up the level. Their level came up really, really quick as well. And it was a similar thing that you guys achieved to do in Tenerife, right? So to me now, that kind of both of those groups are the strong groups. And then obviously you see Pierre, Tristan going to Tenerife as well. Ethan as well, one of the strongest out there now with a lot of potential and super young still. So there are a lot of things now that we look into as a, let's say, brand representative that probably in the past at my time we didn't look so much. At that time, it's like you suggested before. We were going from event to event, having a laugh. One event Ross will do good, that event Benny, that event me or none. It was definitely very, very different. We were kind of putting it easy for the top guys, for Kevin and Mike and Jimmy and all those guys. Now it's kind of, when you guys came, was kind of the other way around. You guys were more pro, more ready for the event. So that's a bit it.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna get too hung up on this, but we go to Azores 1 year. I borrow you my skateboard. You fall, don't train at all before the contest, and then you win like 11 out of 11 races, and Formula World Title is yours. And then a couple of years go by. We still do the slalom, and then foiling comes, and you kind of, I don't know. I want to ask you, let's say, why or how did you kind of realize, okay, this is my thing. I'm going to sacrifice the slalom a little bit, which obviously pays the bills, like it's still, slalom sells boards. So then the contracts are mostly for slalom, foiling is kind of a new thing coming up. And you decide, okay, I'm not going to really train slalom much. I'm just going to focus on foiling. And I'm going to try to win it. And since you were pretty much the only guy doing it, you were kind of double prepared than everybody else. And obviously you destroyed us. That first year that we did, I think first year we did like demo events. And then we did like a proper tour. Both those 2 years, you trained much more than everybody. So how do you make that call? Like, okay, like slalom, yeah, I can be, top 10 or whatever, but foiling, if I train and if I put the work and whatever, how do you decide, okay, I can be world champion,
Yeah, obviously at that time, I didn't decide, I can be world champion, no, but that was the year, that year, the previous year to when foiling kind of came into windsurfing, that was the year that I spent all my summer foiling on a kite, right? So I had a kite foil and I had a foil. So that summer already in Argentina, so that European winter, I was all summer hooked to that, and I was kite foiling every day with a similar equipment that they use these days, right? With the foil kites and really high level of foiling. So when I did that, to me, that was an eye opener. I thought at that time already, this is going to come to windsurf, and I want to be on that. This is for me, it's like the next level of racing. It was going to be really similar to upwind downwind racing, which relates to Formula that I was actually really good at that before, right? So I won that year. So that year that I won in the Azores was the year that winter I was just kite foiling, and then when I came to the Azores, I trained 1 week in Tarifa with Giannis Price, and then I came to the Azores and I dominated. And I think that I got used so much to go so fast on the foil that then in the Formula everything was quite easy in a way, or it just opened maybe a new parameter of how to trim everything, and I was going really fast. I mean, not to talk up myself, but I was going fast, and it got windy, and I was comfortable with my stuff, and yeah, I kind of dominated. And then that was the year that Antoine was really pushing foiling into windsurfing, and then obviously Starboard being one of the leader brands, and they launched Starboard foils, right? So Tiesla decided to launch Starboard foils, and I was already at that time one of the main testers for the R&D for Starboard. So and I just started to work for Severn as well, I think that year. So I started working for Severn as well that year. So then obviously I was testing all the stuff. So all the new Starboard foils and all the development from moment zero was done by myself, let's say. By myself. I don't mean by myself, but I was kind of the main tester from scratch on the whole foiling project from starboard. So obviously that gives you a big advantage, that you are testing all the new stuff, and then you understand everything, you know how to trim everything, you know how to you are quite advanced, especially at that first stage, when everybody's trying to do it. But even before that, when I did SILT, we were doing slalom, and I was on 0.7 and starboard, and I had an F4 foil from that I borrowed from Monty. I was doing very good, and we were battling it out with Antoine. So already there, I was kind of going good before all the starboard foils era, let's say. But then obviously when we did Japan and we did New Caledonia, that in New Caledonia, I remember you did very good, like you were in the podium, second or third. Yeah, I don't remember with Thomas.
I was second. Thomas Goyard was third, but I was fighting with the Goyards for second. You were like miles down the road. So
so obviously that year, that probably was the year that I had a big advantage, let's say, in how many hours of foiling I had. Most of the guys were still focusing on slalom, and that year was like even if we had events in every place we went, or not everyone, but we did I think 3 events. Those events were still like an exhibition year, right? It was not the official year. And then the following year was the proper year, no? That's the one I won. Yeah. So then we did Japan, Korea, Costa Brava, and then SILT. And then we did Silvaplana, and then we did Portugal as well. So that's the year that I kind of dominated, that won Silvaplana, won Portugal, won Japan, came second in Korea, and then pretty much was doing very, very good at all the foiling events. My decision was, to be honest, when I was doing that kite foiling thing, I was so hooked into that I was like, I was ready kind of to switch from windsurfing to kite. And then foiling entered windsurfing, and I said, okay, this is my thing. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm having fun. Obviously, after maybe starting in 2022 or around that time, after 12 or 13 or 14 years of training hard, sometimes you wonder, I'm gonna still get better, or did I hit a wall, or you get to that moment that you really analyze, what to do. It's like I felt that I had to move on. And then when I tried that kite foiling thing, which goes like really, really fast, I was like, maybe I just do this, for fun, and do some other stuff. And then foiling came into windsurfing. I was there at the right time, maybe again, being part of the main tester of, let's say, the starboard group at that moment. So I took the leadership there, and it was a very fun project. We were experimenting and trying stuff. Obviously, Starboard, as you know, always had invested a lot in development, and this was like a really fun project, something really new to discover, right? So we tried a million things, and it was always really fun to be part, no? And then when you have fun and you're enjoying your time in the water, then obviously you spend more time in the water, and then you get better, and it's just, you have a big happy smile in the water when you're sailing, and that probably opens up a different dimension of making decisions, and you race better, when you're liking, when you really like, what's happening, this is amazing. And that's probably the year that I did very good. And then the next year, I jumped in the project of the IQ Foil project already.
Yeah. So to sum it up, is it like, like one thing leads to the next, and then, like, let's say the US Open, and then, Formula, and then slalom, and then abandoning slalom for foiling, but because you're on starboard, and then the IQ foil, it's like, it's quite insane if you look back how many, I mean, you were there to take the opportunity every single time, and you had the balls to take it, right? But it's, I don't know, I don't believe in luck, it's not luck, because
sometimes obviously they say, you make your own luck, or the more I train, the luckier I get, right? There are such statements like that, but I honestly think that I was really lucky, or lucky to be at least being given that opportunity. And then maybe I was courageous enough to go for it, being from Argentina, going to US Open, and then the next thing is like, from a trip of 1 week to the US Open, they tell me, go to Thailand to compete. And I was like, yeah, why not? Maybe naive, maybe stupid, but I was like, yeah, why not? I go. And then I did good, and then I go to Garda. And then kind of that summarized most of my life, when those opportunities came, then I took them, I don't know, maybe when I was raised up, and when you come from a country far away and there's some economical crisis, and you know how things are not easy, when you actually get opportunities, you really value them and you go full power, and you don't let them go away, or you really
take it for granted, let's say.
Yeah, you don't take it for granted, and you go for it. And then a million years I was very, very lucky, like to, for example, Jimmy was the head tester from Nilpan, and obviously he talks Spanish, because he has some Latin background, So for him it was very easy to communicate with me, and he saw that I wanted to put hours in, and I had the dream to become good. So he obviously supported it, He like encouraged me to come to Maui to test, even if I had to just come to test mass and put hours on them to see if they would snap or not. Shitty thing, but I was happy to go and do it, And then and maybe that thing led to be testing with Antoine, or be testing with both of them and learning from them, or learning from Steve, and all these things. I always was, yeah, let's do it. I do it. Always the yes, think in your mind, yes,
like the movie,
yeah,
Yes Man.
The yes man, yeah, exactly.
When the grandma with no teeth approaches you, you have to say yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so then obviously to come from where I came, obviously, it's not that I come from a poor family, and I did all my career like that. I was lucky enough to go to a good school that had English. My parents were okay with the economic situation, so I could go to this very good English school. Then obviously access to go and take lessons, windsurfing lessons, which obviously are kind of from a middle class, let's say. And then lucky enough to have support from the Argentinian Federation to be part of that Olympic team that at that time was really strong, and they were bringing medals. So then there was always budget to invest on the future. And then I was part of that little youth team that got world champion. And then one thing took to another, and then that's where I am now. Kind of in a way, obviously, really proud. And then to summarize it, and when I saw the opportunity that we could bring foiling into the Olympics, and being part of that, part of a big group of pushing for that, then I obviously said, yes, I want to do that. I want to push. I want to bring windsurfing or foiling into the windsurfing Olympic discipline. You need to go to Garda and talk to all these people. Yeah. You need to teach all these guys. Yeah. You need to go to Bermuda and convince 100 old guys that never windsurfed their lives. Yeah. Why not? Let's go. And it happened, right? And then this year, you want to spend 12 hours a day behind the computer? No, definitely not. But I did. And then come to Silva Plana and Garda, without much background of organizing stuff, and or dealing with federations, or dealing with coaches, or dealing with organizers and all that. You know me as a friend. I put 100%, and things came out, and things are happening. And I think that we are in a good track, that things are looking very good, in a way. So, why to do it? Because in a similar thing, similar way, this is like a super honorable thing to do, and it's something to live into winter.
As I mentioned before, why not?
Yeah, and why not? It's something cool to do, and maybe in 10 years when I look back, I can say, yeah, I was one of those guys that maybe left my windsurfing career, because, not long ago I was world champion, right? Like 2 years ago I was world champion, and probably a lot of friends from Argentina, or even from the Argentina Federation, they're like, when it got the Olympic, they're like, fuck yeah, now we're going to have you, you're going to go and do very good. We have yourself for the Olympics. And I'm like, no, sorry, I don't really want to do it anymore. And then kind of did not sacrifice that. I just felt it was the moment to do it. And but a lot of people say, you just sacrifice your windsurfing career for this, and if it's sacrifice, it's sacrifice for a good reason. This is something really cool to be part of, and then when I will look back, I was like, fuck yeah, I made it happen. I was one of the guys that made it happen. And all this new community of wind foilers in the Olympics is massive, and we have a sick tour, and everybody's really happy to compete on it. And that's kind of my mission now, in a way.
Yeah, cool. So we went full circle in this conversation. But before I let you go, we have this. I know you don't watch because you have no time or you don't listen. Actually, it's good for driving. We have this section at the end that was supposed to be quick fire questions, but they're pretty slow, to be honest. So,
okay.
Ready? What are your pet peeves?
My what?
Your pet peeves is something that kind of annoys you, like that you cannot stand, like a phobia thing,
Phobia. Heights. Maybe heights.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, can be. I don't know. How many times a day do you pee your wetsuit?
How many times? Not many these days, but I never gave a fuck about pissing in the wetsuit, so I probably pissed quite a bit on my times.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure. I don't know, man. No. Guilty pleasure. No clue.
Okay. Your top 5 windsurfers of all time.
Top 5 from all time. Let's say Phil again, because when I was with Maui Sales and he gave a lot of feedback and teach me a lot, and I knew that he was like really one of the best racers out there and super technical and knowing how to trim and develop stuff. So probably that's my number 1. Steve, obviously, as well. Steve Allen. Similar thing. No, I would probably name all racers. Because that's what I had more connection with. So Steve, obviously Jimmy, and then Antoine, obviously, great as well. And I'm missing one. No. Yeah. Let's say the 5th one. I would say Albi. Albi being the young upcoming and probably the most talented of the young generation that stepped up and kind of started beating all the strong old PWA guys, let's call them, and with a really really strong mindset to win. Right, he didn't care anything. He's like, I'm here to win. That's it. See you guys. See you later. No, something like that. So that's the 5th one.
Yeah. So Alberto Menegatti making it first time into our top 5 on this show. Most underrated windsurfer of all time.
Underrated?
Maybe people don't remember or don't really consider, and that he's fucking good. And
probably someone, maybe Brian Rugil. He's a Danish guy that when I started, he was really, really strong on Formula. He was getting podiums on every Euro Cup we were doing at that time. And probably most of the young sailors or slalom sailors or even the ones from your age group, probably don't even know who he was. And he was like one of really, really great sailors from that time, but probably maybe never made it such as a big name, let's say a famous name, but he was really, really, really strong, really good.
Foil freestyle, yes or no?
Yeah, sure.
Obstacles in slalom, yes or no?
Yes, now that I'm not there. Obstacle on IQ foil, then yes, definitely.
Okay, set it up. Beach starts, yes or no?
Yeah, in favor of Steve Allen.
One spot you would have to sail every day for the rest of your life.
Tarifa is pretty good. Puerto Rico. I've spent a lot of years in Puerto Rico training there, and it's a really, really nice place to windsurf there. I would say Puerto Rico then.
Worst check-in story or your worst excess baggage bill, if you want to make it short.
Yeah, somewhere around a grand coming back from Switzerland to Argentina, but at Grants, not so bad. Not so bad.
You don't have a story for us?
Yeah, check-in, probably there are a million very bad stories. I'll make a good one, not a bad story, but coming out from Malaga to Korea, like checking in with Finian, Benny, Ludo, and someone else that was here. We had like, I don't know, like 20 to 25 bags, and I managed to pass them all as my exes, like €90 per set, yeah, 25 bags. And like Fini and Benny, they were like, what? You know, I kind of used my Spanish, my Argentinian accent to get it through. So that was a good experience. I never had like a really, really bad experience, like having to stay in the airport and not being able to fly and stuff like that. It never happened, luckily.
Yeah, obviously that there was a lady that had a soft spot for South Americans there.
Yeah.
Who is or was your worst competitor that you see on your heat and you're like, shit?
Worst competitor. I remember I had one in slalom. I mean, I don't know. I always hated to have Cedric because Cedric. I remember that year we were both kind of starting at the boat at a couple of events in a row, and every time I had him, we were like fighting for the boat, and then obviously one comes out good, you know, and then he was always like beating me in the having better starts, and he was like fucking it up my hits. So at that time maybe Cedric, but not because of anything else, not just because we were having like a similar trim and we were starting from the boat and our fast trimming setup that was coming from the boat, maybe him. But I never had like a guy. Obviously some years in the back, you know, when we had the no rules or when that started, obviously there were some guys like maybe Ludo or Peter Bell, you know, they were really going for it at the jives, and they were not really respecting, you know, like some not rules. There were no rules, obviously, but I never had someone like that.
Yeah, for that boat thing, it's scary. I know, like it's, you know, for people that don't understand, like you have most places we would have a hard boat at that end of the start line, and you're coming flat stick. You're trying to start at 0 at full speed, yeah. So you're coming 30 knots plus, so 55, 60 k's an hour, and the guy that is below you can kind of point you up into the boat, and then you're getting kind of squeezed between him and the boat, and it happens from time to time that maybe you hit the boat or the engine or whatever, and that's not the most pleasant. It's probably when it gets hairy, it's the scariest place to start for sure up there. You get $1 million in cash and you need to spend it in 24 hours. What do you get?
24 hours. No clue. Maybe a trip with friends, family.
Hell of a trip.
Yeah, maybe 10 years ago I was a trip with friends. Now I'll say a trip with friends and family and their families. Yeah.
Last but not least, you're driving and you put on this podcast. Who you want to hear? Who would you like to hear?
What I would like to hear? Yeah, honestly, as you mentioned before, I didn't have time to see all the other ones. But if you didn't do Francisco yet, Francisco, I would probably like to hear him because I think obviously because he's from Argentina. And did you do him? No, not yet.
No. Yeah, we're trying.
And I think, and I think he has probably a million stories, and him being one of those like really strong wave sailors from those older days, from Quattro and all that. You know, I think he probably has like a million super cool, interesting stories. You know, from back in the day with Quattro and all that. And that one I will watch for sure.
Okay, it's coming. I send you the link. Okay. Gonzalo, thank you so much for your time. You can go back to the computer now, answer some emails.
Yeah.
And take care. See you around somewhere. Hopefully, means we can travel, and that's it. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. I hope
works.
it was useful. Yeah, and I'm probably see you around here when you go through to Tenerife.
Yeah.
In Tarifa.
Yeah. Okay. Cool, man. Thanks.
Cool. Bye bye.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Another great podcast there from Maciek. So thanks to Gonzalo for doing that. If you did like that podcast, don't forget, give us a thumbs up, like it does help. And if you don't want to miss one, we release one every Wednesday. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel and you will get notified when we release that podcast. Plenty of others coming up and some real interesting names. If you really are loving the podcast, you can chip in some beer money, support the channel and help them flow like they are now. And I'm gonna link up a few up here from previous ones. We've had some really good ones. Maciek himself was in a podcast last week, and I think it's pretty interesting to see what the interviewer has been doing with his windsurfing life, because he has been around a bit. So there we go. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.